in this video, we're going to go over a bunch of different tools that you might have seen people using in group, but you're not too sure how to use them or apply them to a chart. First one we're going to look at is the horizontal resistance level. That's this one right here. So this horizontal line will stretch right across your entire screen. If you wanted to go into the settings, you can put text on it. You can change the color of the text. You can change the style and the color of the line itself. And next one you could use is the trend line. Trend line's here. And this one, same thing. Once you've drawn it on your chart, go from down here, pull it to the top. If you wanted to label it, you can right click on it, go into your settings. And the same options are available to you here. You can change the size of the font. You can change whether it's bold or italic. You can change the orientation of where the text is on the top, middle, or the bottom, whether it's on the right, the left, or the center. Next one most commonly used is going to be the horizontal ray. Now this one doesn't stretch across your screen. It'll be basically where you want to select it to highlight is where it's going to start. So if I wanted just to highlight this support or this resistance right here, I would just click that and it'll extend from this point onwards. Horizontal ray has the same options. Just right click and go into settings. You can type what you want here, change the font, and do everything else you could do for the trend line or the horizontal line. Another thing you can do too is if you have a secondary support level that you're watching, maybe you want to highlight it by making it a dashed horizontal ray. You can do the same thing with the horizontal line. Once you click on it, you can go up to this setting. It'll give you a bunch of options for the line, dashed line, dotted line. You can choose how thick that line is. So the same thing is going to apply to the horizontal ray. All the settings are here just the same. Next one you might want to use is a vertical line. So if there's an important date coming, like a FOMC meeting, for example, you could mark that on your chart and have a date set. This just moves left to right and it'll line up with your dates across the bottom. All right, the next tools that I like to use, and you might see people use them, is the arc and the triangle. I like to use the arc as a rounded bottom. The way you can pull this here, I'll get rid of this one for now. I'm going to redraw it for you. You click on the one side, pull it across the top, and then drag it down. And you'll have to just adjust it a little bit just to get it exactly where you want it to be. Once you've got it drawn, you can right click on it again, go into the settings. You can change the background color. You can make it more opaque, or you can make it more transparent. You can turn the background off completely, or you can change the border color and the thickness of the border as well. Another one I like to use is the triangle. So you can use this for patterns. I like to emphasize the atom part of a double bottom. So I'll draw a nice triangle across the bottom. And same thing here. I'm just going to delete it for now, and I'll redraw it. Go down to the triangle here. All right, just like so. There's going to be 3 touches. 1, 2, 3. Next one I like to use is the rotated rectangle. So if I have a trend line drawn at the bottom of a pattern, for example, I might draw the trend line, and then I'll use this rotated rectangle to emphasize that this is a buy zone. I'm going to delete this again, and I'll show you how I've drawn it. Go into your tools over here on the left-hand side, click on rotated rectangle, and you pick a starting point and an end point. And then if you drag the mouse up, it'll choose how thick you want it to be. Next tool I like to use is the parallel channel. So if you're looking to draw a wedge and you want it to be a little cleaner than just a falling wedge, sometimes a parallel channel will fit better than just drawing a wedge freehand. So the way you draw a parallel channel, you can delete it for now. I'll replace it here. Parallel channels in the same area as your trend lines. Click on parallel channel. Again, you pull across the top, drag it down to the bottom. It should give you a nice clean parallel channel with 2 parallel sides or trend lines on each side. If you go into the settings, you can choose to have the middle highlighted. So this red line here, it's like the median line of the pattern. I'll move this out of the way. You can see this also works as a midline trend line within your channel, right? So sometimes you get really nice respected touches, like over here it was support, then it was resistance, support, resistance, resistance, support, support, and you got to bounce basically off of this line before it left the pattern. So it's just another tool to add to your arsenal if you wanted to draw parallel channels instead of wedges. Next tool we're going to be looking at is the fixed range volume profile. So this is very similar to the volume profile visible range, except you can lock it to a very specific range on your screen. So you can see this one, I've selected the range from over here to the left. And I'm going to show you how to pull this. It's really easy. So I'll delete it for now. Go into the left side column, down to the fixed range volume profile. Then you just highlight any range. And it will just select that range for you and show you where most of the volume or buying and selling activity was in a given range. So here it worked really well as being the final move before the move happened, right? So once it hit this level and broke through, that was pretty much it for that structure, that range. Same thing down here. It was acting as support for a while, and then eventually it gave up, and that's where it broke lower. Drawn another one across the bottom. You can see the same thing. It was resistance, then support, resistance for a while, and then after it broke this level again, this is the move that started the next leg higher. I have a couple more drawn back here if you wanted to see. Alright, so that's the fixed range volume profile. Next one we're going to look at is a trend-based fib extension. Now the only difference between a trend-based fib extension and a regular fib tool is that there's 3 touches for a trend-based fib. So you need one anchor here, one anchor at the bottom, one anchor at the top. Or if you're pulling a trend-based fib to the upside, it'll be one at the bottom, one at the top, and then a third one at the bottom again. So I'll redraw what it would look like if you were to draw it. You're going to have 1 point, second point, and a third point. Okay? And essentially it would be your low, and then your high, and then your next higher low if you're drawing it for an uptrend. This is really a useful tool if you already have established a trend, right? So I like to use it once you put in your high, and then your lower lows come in, because this low is lower than this low. So now you're starting to establish a downtrend, right? And once this lower high came in, because this high is a lower high than the previous high, so now you're looking at a trend, which is a downtrend. So you're looking for downtrend targets using a trend-based fib extension tool. As you can see, the 1.618 was respected along the bottom, and that's where we got most of the bounces from. Same thing in reverse. If you're going to use it for the upside movement, you go from the low to your high to your first higher low. So this low is higher than the previous low. So now you have an uptrend, right? So it's trend-based fib extension. Here's your uptrend, and you're using uptrend targets with an uptrend fib extension tool. Next one we're going to look at is time measurement tools. So this is a trend-based fib time tool, and it works the same way as your trend-based fib extensions, except you're not measuring prices. So you're not going to have horizontal levels to measure prices. You're going to have vertical levels that measure dates. So same thing, once you've established a trend, you got your low, you have your high, and then your higher low. You can pull a trend-based time fib here using these anchor points. Okay, so this would be your low again, your high to your low. And the idea here is that you're not trying to measure what a price could be. You're trying to measure where a pivot could be in the future, right? So it's kind of a predictive tool. As you can see at the 272, we had a pivot to the downside. Once it got to the 618, basically it broke and changed direction to the upside. Then once it got to the 1, that's when we had a major top and a rollover top of the bull run in 2021. Next one is using cyclic lines and the fib time zone. So the fib time zone only uses 2 touches. The trend-based fib time needs a low and a high and a low, or if you're using it for downside movements, you can pull from a high to a low to a high. Works the same way. So over here, we're using the fib time zone. This is not trend-based. So all you need is 1 touch at the bottom and another touch at the top. And all you're doing here is measuring the swings, right? So here's a swing, there's a swing, here's another swing, here's another top swing, right? So the way you'd measure a fib time zone tool is you can go into here, go to fib time zone, and you do the same thing. You'd measure from the low for the bottom swing to your top swing. And that'll give you this nice trend here, and I'll show you where potential pivots could be. So for this example, in this yellow circle, this is where the move started. Once it got to the top, this is where it started to roll over. We had another move up, and then it rolled over here again. And now we're getting to the end of this trend, and we're getting a move to the upside so far. Now, I just use the fib time zone tool because I can add colors and a background to it. So if you go into the settings, you can see that I've labeled every area, or I've highlighted every area with a different background color, just to make it a little more visible. But really, you don't need them. So if I wanted to take those away, you can go over to the left-hand side, And you can use this other tool called cyclic lines, and it's exactly what's here on the chart already. It's just blue lines without a background. So if you go into the settings, there is no background to choose. It just gives you these straight blue lines, and that's it. So the key here is that all you're doing is measuring the amount of days in between these swings. So from the swing low to the swing high, that was 92 bars. Right? So then it tells you into the future where the next 92 bars of the cycle are going to be. This is 92 bars to this one, another 92 bars to this one, another 92 bars to this one, and another 92 bars to this one. And that's where you get a cycle. Okay, and the last one we're going to cover today is just the straight normal rectangle. So I like to use this one to capture zones of resistance instead of just marking it with a single line. So down here you could call this whole thing a support level or a resistance level, right? Basically it's an accumulation zone. Now across the top I would do the same thing, and this would be your resistance level. So instead of just drawing one line, really it's more about a zone because it's not perfect, right? You get a little bit of movement above the trend line. Some people get faked out. We might call them bear traps and bull traps. But really it's just another way of measuring where a support and resistance zone could be. But that's pretty much it for today. Just wanted to go through a few things with you to clear up some confusion. In case any of you had some questions about this, I hope this video cleared it up. Thank you.